So what have we here? An extra lecture arising from some discussion we had about foods for dysphagia and texture changes in one of the tutorials. This lecture is based on a final year lecture. As usual with deeper material, it's up for you to develop your interests. Staff will suggest avenues that might be interesting. But university learning is about you developing your understanding of the subject in general and of more detailed topics that interest you. This is an interesting topic because it links nutrition and dietetics and food technology very clearly. Okay, so what we're going to talk about. Talk about what texture analysis is and go through a look at a case study for foods for dysphagia. Okay, role of texture analysis. You may have done this in the supermarket, given the bread a squeeze. Well, there's a machine that does it. Texture refers to those qualities of food that can be felt with the fingers, tongue, palate or teeth. Foods have different textures, as you know, such as crisp crackers or crisps, crunchy celery, hard sweets, tender steaks, chewy chocolate chip cookies and sticky toffee. Texture can also be a measure of food quality. The texture of a food can change as it is stored for various reasons. If fruit or vegetables lose water during storage, they may wilt, or a crisp apple might become leathery on the outside. Bread might become hard and stale on storage. A range of texture analyzers are available. We have this one, a couple of these in the food lab, with probes for different foods. If you click on the image, as usual, these things will take you through to various links if you're interested. So texture analysis, why do we do it? It provides an objective measure of the characteristics of food. For example, chewness is a specific definition. We'll look at some others in a moment. Such objective measures can be used to validate subjective measures such as those from consumer sensory testing. And they do work pretty well. It's a good relationship. And again, for those who are interested in deeper reading, all these images link through to further reading. So texture and eating. There's a rabbit. These are the distinct stages of chewing and swallowing. We've got a video of swallowing a bit later on, I think. In most cases, these are carried out without conscious thought. But for some people, such as those with issues around dyslexia, that is problems with swallowing, the process can be difficult and close attention needs to be paid to the texture of foods. Here are some technical definitions of mouthfeel. Many of these are familiar words, but in all cases they have specific definitions allowing them to be measured, which can be found in the food science literature. Just a couple of examples. Adhesiveness is a key issue. Food becoming stuck on the palate or on the cheek pouches can cause significant problems for people who have difficulty in swallowing, possibly including very serious ones such as choking. And there's just a few examples linking the technical descriptors through to various food types. I'm sure you can think of some of your own. Okay, texture profile analysis. There's a number of ways of doing this. So one of the ways we do it is something called the 2-bite test, which is effectively the machine we saw a bit earlier on the yellow machine mimicking the act of chewing food. We've got lots of resources on this. Chemist produced a very good video on using our Brookfield BT3 texture analyzer. It is in Panopto, so you probably need to be logged into TU systems to access it. Click also on the link for a link through the image to a link through to Brookfield's website. So case study. As mentioned, dysphagia is difficult in swallowing, which may be the consequence of a range of medical conditions, including throat and stroke cancer. Stroke and throat cancer. Foods for dysphagia. A technically sophisticated means stands for both nutrition and texture. The last to ensure they are safe for the patient to consume. And there's some very good meals produced by companies which we'll mention in a moment. Back in the day, food just to get liquidized, so deeply unappetizing. Now, it looks like food and it tastes like food, but easy to swallow. Thickeners, which are often starch-based, are used to provide confidence and flow characteristics in liquid food, so to thicken in milk, for example. And there's a video here which links through to issues around swallowing. It sort of goes on, I think, to talk about specific products, so it tends to take an American view. So after a while, you can probably just stop listening to it and move on with the presentation. The IDSI framework is very important. It provides a consistent terminology to describe food textures and drink thicknesses. It's a continuum of 8 levels, 0 to 7, where drinks are measured from levels 0 to 4, while foods are measured from levels 3 to 7, with 7 being normal food. If you click on the image, it'll take you through a link for the full background. Very much of interest to people who are keen on dietetics. This is the updated IDSI map, which I think is in that link as well. It's quite complicated. Well, it's not particularly complicated, but it's got good detail in it, and it has guidance on how to do the test, which we do, and we'd probably, under normal circumstances, would have you in the food lab doing, hopefully sometime in the future. Okay, so issues with hospital foods. Perhaps the biggest single issue is that hospitals rarely have proper kitchens these days. They often don't have ovens, just microwaves. The locations of where meals are regenerated may be a long way from where the patients are, with potential impacts on the texture of foods for dysphagia in particular, and food palatability in general. For more background, click on the various images, including links to a northeastern company with a big impact in this market who we've done quite a lot of work with in the past. So, here's a typical meal for a dysphagic person at level 5. Now, the point about this is that all parts of the meal must be at level 5 after cooking. And it should be true after both microwave and oven cooking. But is that the case? We ran some short studies to do this, which were, again, unfortunately interrupted by the emergency. But we will get back to, because it got some really interesting and quite potentially significant results. So this is what we did. It's the experimental method. We did both microwave and oven cooked meals, and we timed it so they start at the same time. We checked them with temperatures. We made sure they're over 75 degrees centigrade for safety. Made note of the time and start of completion of cooking. So identical meals are said to be regenerated, which is the technical term we use for heating up frozen meals. And then the texture is measured over time. Typically 15, 30, 45 minutes. We measured the adhesiveness. We replicated 3 times if possible. Sometimes can be a problem depending on the amount of sample you have. I think we managed this when we did. But again, if you just look at this, the potatoes are quite similar. String beans, but this sort of beanie type stuff, there's quite a lot of textural variability in that anyway. So that might be an issue. Okay, so before we look at the results, a reminder of something we did earlier. A box of whisker plots, which we talked about in an earlier module. In this case, we're interested in how spread out the results are. The bigger the dimensions on the plot, the more variable results are, so the more variable the food is. It's normal, of course. The results for food vary quite a bit, but this can be very important for such highly specified food. So if you want to remind about this, go back to the previous lecture, which is in the notes and also in the playlist for the Nutrition and Health module in my YouTube channel generally. So here are some of the results. If the results aren't very clear, if you click on this, it'll open up a Tableau public visualization where you can do various things such as looking at different foods individually. Note the wide variety in some ingredients but not others. Again, this can have significant implications for food safety with respect to retaining a given IDSI level. So we did further analysis on them, made some student results from last year. Down here is a list of the foods. You'll notice that some of them were oven cooked, some of them microwaved, and this is indicating in the coding it's either an O or an M at the end. This table summarises the changes in adhesive force in several meals regenerated by the 2 methods, with adhesion measured immediately after regeneration and then 15 minutes later. So we need a short study in this. We need to do this probably for a bit longer. Note that in some cases the texture of meal increases and in others it decreases. So this is adhesive force. If we look at adhesion, we get very similar results. Again, there's quite a lot of variability. We note significant increase in some cases. So in this case is the dysphagia fish pie that had been microwaved and the standard microwaved fish pie. The manufacturers say they prefer meals to be oven cooked, but as we discussed, lots of hospitals simply don't have ovens. So these results suggest we need to do more work in this area, and I think we do. I think these are really interesting results just done from a small study. Again, when we talked about this, we discussed the report, which is often described as a Prue Leith report. There's many other people on it. She wasn't the lead author. There's a link there to the report for those who are interested. The last 2 bullets here relate directly to what we have been discussing. NHS kitchens are a long way from consumer, and they may be in sorry need of refurbishment. And yes, and that's exactly what we've been talking about. We need a revolution in this. Are you going to lead it? Okay, that's all. Thanks for listening.